we go. Perfect.
Hi, Christelle.
I think she's muted. All right, shall we start? I feel like we should start. So thank you everybody for joining, for your time today. I want to also thank some of our distributors from around the country. I see Deb up there on my top left, from Pennsylvania, as well as some of our, I have some Meyer people join us. I invited everybody, so hopefully we get some of the wine stewards as well as some of the buyers on. As well as our wonderful Woodbury team, our local team from Michigan. So thank you. And I wanted to put this presentation together just as an educational tool for everybody. Can everyone hear me okay? Cool. I know you saw a bunch of the beautiful pictures of some of our wineries that we are a supplier for. We're not going to get specific with the individual wineries. I wanted this to be more of an educational tool that we can use, we can send out. Our salespeople can reference back to and go, oh, what was that DOCG again? I think that's the best way to go about this. As we develop this tool, we can obviously go into depth and do some bullet points for each individual. Hey Chris, how are you? He's connecting. So that's the idea behind this masterclass on Italian 101. So let me share my screen with you. Share computer. There we go. How we looking? Good? So let's get into this. This is Italy 101. And then I know you're looking at this and going, man, I should have some pizza or some pasta tonight for dinner. Some great choices. So an Italian love affair. Economics, religion, politics have and do play a role in the history and current world of Italy's wine. 26% of all Italian wine is being exported into the US as well as around the world. Italy and France actually go back and forth for producing the most wine. Over 2,000 varietals, indigenous varietals from Italy. And of course, the longest history of continually developing their viticulture and viniculture in the world. So some fun facts: almost 3,000 years of winemaking. Ancient Greeks called it onitria. There is 1.7 million acres of wine planted in Italy, 20 distinct wine regions, and Italy now imports more sparkling wine into the US than France, which is just crazy to think of all the champagne we drink. Average person in Italy drinks 54 liters of wine. Compared to the US, it's 12. And then if you look at the Vatican City, it's 73 bottles per person per year. 38 million cases in 2018 compared to 15.3 million French wines imported into the US. Italian wine goes incredibly well with food, as we know. Italian wine plus Italian food equals heaven. Italian wine plus any food obviously is a great match. Like Italian food, Italian wine has a specific point of view, unparalleled authenticity, dating back in time. So Italian culture is specific and embraced in the US: art, food, fashion, sports, music, literature, philosophy, and lifestyle. I see some new faces, very cool. United States obviously loves Italy. According to the World Travel Association, 2.15 million Americans travel to Italy each year. It's just some of the brands we love: Ferrari, Prada, San Pellegrino, Dolce & Gabbana, etc. Americans love Italian food, not just pizza. So Italy coming to America. If you've not been to Italy in Chicago, I suggest you go. New York, Boston, they're all over the US, providing great awareness to Italian food, especially Italian wine. More Italian restaurants these days are doing specific menus with Italian wine only. And I put Noto's in there because they're a favorite of mine here in Grand Rapids. So just to make it a little bit easier for everybody, let's talk about the north. So we're talking about Tuscany, Piedmont, and the Veneto. When we talk about Tuscany, think of Florence and Siena. You may have had some of these wines: Chianti, Chianti Classico, Brunello di Montalcino, the favorite grape, Sangiovese, the favorite white grape, Vernaccia. Piedmont, we're talking about Turin, the capital. So Barolo, Barbaresco, Moscato d'Asti, Gattinara, Barbera, Dolcetto. Favorite grape, Nebbiolo, and then the white grape would be Moscato, and then the Veneto, Venice and Verona. We're talking about Pinot Grigio, Soave, Amarone, Valpolicella, Prosecco, red grape Corvina, and then white grape Pinot Grigio. A couple more: Campania and Puglia, so beautiful town of Naples, Taurasi, Greco di Tufo, Fiano d'Avellino. Favorite red grape is Ionico or Alianico, I've heard it pronounced too, and Falanghina for white. And then Sicily and Sardinia, Nardavla, Cananal, Vermentino. Favorite red grape, Nardavla, Cananal, Cerasuolo di Vittoria, and then white grapes out of Sicily is Vermentino. So what makes Italy tick? Unique country with series of climates and microclimates ranging from the Alps to the Mediterranean to North Africa. 20 regions, 103 provinces, all with unique cuisine and wines. So Italian diversity in food, farming, and varietals. Italian winemakers and viticulturists have embraced improved and innovated modern winemaking techniques and vineyard management. Italy today is incredibly advanced technologically. So, important slide. Here's the 4 levels of laws and labels. So starting at the bottom, this is the least regulated to the most regulated. It's Vino di Tavola, IGT, DOC, and then DOCG. And then there are some changes coming about with this introduction of Gran Selezione for Chianti Classico, which I'll talk about later. So DOC, Quality Laws and Labels. So it's an organization of vineyards, provinces, and vinicultural practices that begins in the 1960s. So it's denomination origin controllata, introduced in 1963, provides legal structure to establish the standards of production for things like grape varietals, geographic boundaries, yields, aging requirements, vinification, and viticultural practices. I'm trying not to just read this to you. So DOCG, so seeks to identify and protect superior quality and unique varietal territorial links. So it's the denomination of origin controllata guarantee. It's basically a guarantee by the Ministry of Agriculture submitted annually for tasting and have stricter guidelines than DOCG wine, or than DOC wines. And as of December 2009, there's 74 DOCGs. And I know you'll recognize these original 5: Brunello, Vino Noble, Barbaresco, Barolo, and Chianti. I think I see Maddie next to Chris. Hey, Maddie. Quality laws and labels. So there's some flaws. The DOC and the DOCG does not limit yield, so you can have a ton of production. Geographical boundaries are a little too generous. It doesn't allow for innovation and experimentation, and it does not capture the tax revenue of some of the wines being classified as Vino di Tavola. IGT, enacted in 1992 by the Italian Senate. It's the Indication Geografica Tipica. to achieve DOC status similar to the Vin de Pays in France. Allows winemakers to experiment with varietal additions, blends, aging, and geography. But again, it does not address yield issues. And then the EU, which has been around since 2009, along with the rest of Europe, Italian wine law follows the new regulations set out by the European Union. European Union wine law governs not just labeling and designations of origin, but also covers planting rights and restrictions, oenological practices permitted, enrichment, and rural developmental issues. We're flying through this. All right, so Gamba Rosso. I actually have the 2010 book here, if you can see it. This comes out every year. They don't have a Robert Parker or a Wine Spectator, although they will rate Italian wines, but this is their wine Bible. So this is Tre Bicchieri, the prestigious 3 Glasses honor, and it's published in Gamba Rosso every year. So it's been around since 1986. 25,000 bottles are tasted by a panel of 100 people. What a great job to have, right? 18,000 wines reviewed in the book. Wines are awarded between no glasses and 3 glasses. 1,500 wines go to the taste-offs, and then 340 wines are awarded the coveted Tre Bicchieri on average. And I looked, this book is for sale for $34.95 on Amazon. And I just leafing through it today, I found our newest producer, Nespoli from Emilia Romagna, and Annie's going to recognize this one, but Nespoli Sangiovese Romagna Superior was a Tre Bicchieri winner, as well as the Prugneto had 2 glasses. So here's your Tre Bicchieri. And here's the Prugneto. So 2 glasses, 3 glasses. Pretty cool. Great reference. I urge you to get it. And this is another great slide. So here are the 20 provinces in Italy. I'd love to have this on our tech sheets if we could, just as is, and then maybe just a line pointing to where it's from. Italy North and Tuscany. So we're talking about Piedmont, Tuscany, and then the Tre Venezia. Another great map. Let's talk about the Tre Venezia. So this is northeast. This map shows all the DOCs by region as well as the DOCGs. And then Tre Venezia, or IGT, it encompasses Trentino, Friuli, and the Veneto. So vast geographic climate, cultural, culinary, and varietal variants, extreme alpine to moderate, what we call air-conditioned, and led the way in modern, clean vinification techniques for the white wines. Here's Trentino, Alto Adige. So 55% of all wine produced is DOC status. It is the most in Italy. Steep alpine slopes and some moderating influence from Lake Garda. Influence of Austria, German in language, cuisine, and varietals. So some of the white wine, Pinot Grigio, Traminer, Müller-Thurgau, Pinot Bianco, some of the reds, Pinot Nero, Merlot, Cab Franc, Lagrange, Giraldigo, Schiava, etc. So when I think of Trentino, think of a butterfly, and some of the Italians actually put this butterfly right on their label. Really cool. Here's some pictures when we do get to go travel again. Beautiful hillside. Just north of Trentino. And here's the Veneto. So we're going south now. Another look, another great slide. So we'll talk about some Prosecco, some Soave, some Valpolicella. So fourth in production is Veneto. Fell victim to popularity over production in the 70s and 80s. So it's moving to regain that status and has 4 new DOCGs. Home to Vin Italy in Verona, Italy's largest wine fair. Variants and varietals from west to east. So in the west, you have Corvina, Rondinella, Garganega. In the east, you have Merlot, Pinot Bianco, and Cabernet, volcanic soils, temperate climate, borders the sea, an abundant diet of fish, risotto, and home to Radicchio, also home to Venice and Prosecco. So appellation of note, Bardolino, Valpolicella Ripasso, Recioto, Recioto Amarone, Prosecco, Soave, etc. Friuli Venezia sets the precedent and continues to innovate for modern Italian whites, modern Austrian and Slovenian influence in foods, wine, and culture, dramatic landscape with low population and fairly isolated due to bordering Alps. Native white varietals are still being discovered, but Merlot is the most planted. So Pinot Bianco, Pinot Grigio, Friulano, Ribolla Gialla, Picolet, etc. 2 DOCGs, and then Tenuta Angoras is our entry into this portfolio, with our portfolio. Let's talk about Piedmont, so north and west. I feel like I'm running through this really fast. Another look at Piedmont. I like these maps as well because it kind of shows the topography. So we're going to talk about Moscato d'Asti, Barbaresco, Barolo, Dolcetto. So here's Piedmont, most affluent area of Italy, combining the triangle of Milan, Turin, and Genoa. The Alps, Po River, define the geographical boundaries, soil and climate. Piedmont translates to the foot of the mountain. Majority of wines come from the native varietals unique to Piedmont. A third of wine produced is white. So think Asti, think San Silvestro Asti. Food, think game, veal, mushrooms, cheese, butter, and of course the white truffles, which are, I looked it up, $168 per ounce. Crazy. Piedmont wine, only 7th in production, but more DOCGs than any other region. Barbera is the most widely planted, but Nebbiolo is king. Region of small producers. Cru concept emulates Burgundy. Focal point of most high quality wines surrounds the town of Alba. Think of Serralunga de Alba. Here's some of the varietals. Moscato Cortese, which is the main grape in Gavi di Gavi. Arnese, some of the reds, Nebbiolo, Barbera, Dolcetto. And here are your 18 DOCGs for reference. So Barolo, 100% Nebbiolo. Reminds me of a story, I think it was at Noto's Wine Fest, and some guy came up to me and goes, oh, I love that Barolo grape. And I go, you mean the, and then I stop myself and I go, yeah, that's a good grape. 100% Nebbiolo, named for the fog that is common in the Barolo region. Dates back to the Middle Ages and was the wine of the mark to the French king. Capable of long aging, revolutionized by Angelo Gaia in the mid-1980s. Recent analogy sees a return to less extraction and more pure styles. So, divided into 5 major regions. Each of the 5 is subdivided into crus. And the regulation is it must age for 3 years for Normal and 4 for Reserva. It is the most sensual, sexy wine of Italy, according to myself. Tuscany. Most of you that have been to Italy have visited Tuscany. Here's another look. So, Vernaccia, Bulgari, Brunello di Montalcino, some of the DOCGs. So the modern renaissance of Italian wine began in Tuscany. Heart and soul of Italy's wine production is Sangiovese. It is the most produced wine, most produced grape in all of Italy. Birthplace of Super Tuscan and the Vino d'Itola revolt. So modern climate and provinces have specific terroir expression, rich cultural history, the birthplace of Renaissance, home of Florence, Siena, popular tourist destination for sure. Here are their 7 DOCGs. So things I know you've heard of: Chianti, Chianti Classico, Vino Noble, Brunello, Morellino, Vernaccia, plus one of the monopoles in Bulgari. Some of the varietals: Vernaccia, Trebbiano, Vermentino, Malvasia, red, Sangiovese, Sanzovetto, Prunello, Brunello, etc. Wines of Tuscany. So let's talk about Chianti Classico. So if you see, I have it circled up here, but it's right in the heart between Florence and Siena. Right between them, divided into subregions with specific soil and exposures. There's 70,000 total hectoliters. So maybe 100% Sangiovese, but it must be a minimum of 80% Sangiovese with other red grapes. So prior to 2006, you could put white grapes into Sangiovese and make Chianti Classico. Now it's 100% or 80%, but it's all white, all red, excuse me. And then Gran Selezione is a new classification above Reserva, uses grapes harvested from your own winery with upgraded requirements for things like aging. So it actually ages 30 months. There's a little more alcohol and a little more extraction too. Think Maremma, the new Bulgari. Loosely defined as the southwest area of Tuscany along the sea, incorporated in the province of Grosseto, incorporates the steep slopes of the inactive Monte Amiata volcano to the rolling hills and the seas of the Tyrrhenian Sea, Mediterranean climate, ancient Etruscan architecture and artifacts, considered the up-and-coming area. And I want to show you our friends at Morris Farms sent us a video.
Hello everybody, I'm Giulio Parentini, the CEO of Morris Farms. Probably several of you already met me during my visit. And I'm here tonight to toast with you and my wines and my wife, Jenny. And I'm at home not because I can't reach the winery, but because I wanted to include her in this video.
And I'm not allowed to reach the winery.
Yeah, that's the complication of living in quarantine. It's our 4th week of isolation. Fortunately, we are pretty lucky because we can enjoy this view, and so...
Right, so we are filming from our home in the historic center of Massa Marittima. Our house is divided up into 3 different apartments. So my in-laws, Giulio's parents, live upstairs, we live downstairs, and right in the middle, we have this apartment that we rent out, and we are sitting on the terrace of this apartment, which is the corner piece of the whole experience when you stay with us. And this terrace overlooks, first of all, the medieval door to the city. We're right up on it, as well as beautiful Mareman countryside. So it's rolling hills full of olive tree orchards, vineyards, and out to the Tyrrhenian Sea. On a clear day, we can see the islands of Elba and Monte Cristo. And about halfway between our house and the sea is Morris Farms property. So we can see Avvoltore Hill and keep an eye on the weather while we're up here.
So the work in the winery is proceeding as usual. The nature can't be stopped by any law, and this means that we just finished to take care of the pruning of all the plants, and it's interesting even to say that just a couple of weeks ago we have finished to plant a new vineyard that will get in production in 3 years. It's a white grape vineyard, around 3 acres, that is going to produce a wonderful a wonderful Vermentino that for sure we will never forget. So this is my first toast in isolation with you, and I hope we will have other opportunity to do others. Cheers.
Let's go on to Brunello. So by Tuscan Italian standards, a fairly young wine developed in the late 1800s by Biondi Santi, looking at a specific clone, Sangiovese Grosso, now called Brunello, and aging the wine for long periods of time in oak. Let me move these people. Okay. Small region, only 3,000 acres of very expensive land, must age for a minimum of 4 years, 2 in oak, and must be 100% Sangiovese Grosso. Awarded the first DOCG designation in 1980, and then we have Podere Giotto, okay, La Palazzetta, and then La Ripi are some of our producers. Here is Abruzzi. We're getting south. So Abruzzo, one of Italy's fastest growing regions economically since the 1950s, has the best of all worlds, beaches along the Adriatic, and then spectacular ski and winter sports in the Apennines Mountains. So a third of the region is designated as national parks, beautiful medieval towns. 65% of all land is mountainous. Producer of some of Italy's finest olive oils and pastas. The Montepulciano varietal is the second most dispersed varietal in Italy after Sangiovese. It is thought that this indigenous varietal is related genetically to Sangiovese. Some of the varietals in the zones, we have Montepulciano di Abruzzo, we have Terramine, some of the varietals, Trebbiano, Malvasia, Montepulciano, and Sangiovese. Some of the wines range from high quality wines produced from wild hillside cooperatives and vineyards to boutique producers of Montepulciano and Trebbiano di Abruzzo. So Art of the Earth and Gran Sasso are some of the wines that are sold by Woodbury locally from Abruzzo. So we're going to talk about southern Italy, specifically Sardinia. So Nuragic civilization dates back to the 2000 BC. Original natives most likely came from Tuscany, the most idiosyncratic Italian region due to Spanish rule. Ireland was controlled by the Spanish for 400 years, then the Austrians, then French, and then finally the Sardinians revolted in 1848, joined the First Union of Italy, 1861. So generally mountainous with spectacular beachfront, including the very exclusive coast, a wow resort area, the Caribbean of the Mediterranean. Second largest island in the Mediterranean, massive vine removal in the 1980s, so they wiped out 3/4 of the production and replanted. Currently identified as a blue zone, naturally, and promoting health and longevity, according to Dr. Oz. One DOCG is the Vermentino di Gallura. Let's talk about Campania, one of the most beautiful cities in Italy. Historic and indigenous varietals with great potential, home to Naples, Mount Vesuvius, Pompeii, and the Isle of Capri, so the birthplace of pizza, buffalo mozzarella, ricotta, and then Aglianico is the red grape of the future. Puglia, nice little DOCGs of Puglia. Here's some of the regions, Manduria, Salis Salentino, some new DOCGs, Primitivo Manduria, as well as Castel de Monte from Bombino, Nero, and Rosso Riserva. Puglia is one of Italy's largest producing regions, long coastline bordering Adriatic and Taranto Sea, home to the orecchiette pasta, which is kind of a cool little pasta, funny shape. Spicy olive oils and calzone come from Puglia. Some of the varietals, Negro Amaro, Primitivo, Sangiovese, Malvasia Nera, and Bombino. Lucarelli and Alberto Longo are our producers from Puglia. And now we're moving on to Sicily. One of Italy's most exciting regions. So ideal climate for agriculture, lots of potential, vineyard area unmapped because it's mountainous. Major Greek influence in food, wine, culture, and architecture, also ruled by Romans, Gauls, Normans, Arabs, and Aragonese. Birthplace of fine dining, and few wineries are actually older than 30 years old. So Sicily is the largest island in the Mediterranean, third largest region producing wine in Italy, 77 million cases in 2018, 64% were white. 22 DOCs and 1 DOCG. Area just larger than Massachusetts, population of 5 million people. The Etna volcano is the tallest in Europe, 3 times the size of Mount Vesuvius. Mount Etna is one of the world's most active volcanoes, last erupting in April of 2017. And it is the same latitude as New York City. Here is Mount Etna. Fast production catching up in quality and diversity. So traditional winemaking roots, but widespread use of modern vinification techniques and micro or small volume wineries specific to varietal or type. So indigenous varietals predominate. So Carato, Grillo, Trebbiano, Caricante, Fiano, Moscato, some of the reds, Nero d'Avola, Frappato, Nerello Mascalese, up and coming grape, etc. So over-ripening fruit is a major challenge because of the heat they get and the area and location they are in Italy. And then modern producers upgrading image of bulk wine. So that's my presentation, you guys. I'm excited. Let's have some feedback. What do you think?
Rick, really nice overall kind of rounded Italy.
There you are. How are you, Travis?
Great. Great.
Good. Good.
That's a lot to digest.
I know, and I felt like I had to read it to get through it, but yeah, it is a lot of information. It took me a while to put together, but it's a lot of really good information too. So you could just send it to your accounts, or send if you're Deb, you can send it to your team.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. How we use it.
It is so much to unpack, and breaking it down by region is so important too. And I feel like you could go on for days within each region, but you feel like, other countries of course have history, with their own sub-appellations and things like that. So to be able to dig a little bit deeper as we go would be is be good as well. But that's a great great overall recap, and kind of looking at some of the histories of the regions, and you start to see how it kind of plays out within your own markets. And in Michigan, I'm sure other areas as well are probably stronger with certain aspects in certain regions from Italy. And I'm glad you brought up some of the more up and coming areas, Aglianico, Nerello Mascalese, some very important grapes that I think we're going to see a lot stronger sales of coming up here in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Rick, to put it in perspective for you, we have a wine school also, and we're doing a year-long series on Italy where each month we take a specific region and we do 2.5 hours on that region alone. So, it is a huge amount of information. I think Italy is one of the most difficult wine countries to learn. People think that France is difficult until they start learning about Italy, and then they just become overwhelmed very, very quickly.
Yeah.
I love your maps though from the from the court. Those were great.
Yeah, those are really nice. I was glad I could snag those. So.
Yeah, the real hard part is actually summarizing all that information. You did a great job.
Yeah, I felt like I was reading a lot, but unfortunately that's kind of what you have to do to get through it. So, but, and we're not tasting it as we go. Maybe next time we actually take an
Speak for yourself. Who is this guy?
Italian bottles behind you, Rick.
Yeah, I have some behind me. They're just not open. So.
Chris going to share with us.
Do you have a favorite area of production, Rick?
So right now, I've always liked some of the Super Tuscans and things like that, but I really am enjoying the new Nespoli wines. They're fresh, they're full of fruit, everything about them. I think I've not tried. I like the whites, even the Famoso. is really interesting. So yeah, I think that's my latest favorites. How about you?
Like picking a favorite child, I guess.
Exactly.
It'd be tough to say. I suppose my heart kind of lies in Piemonte, but
Yeah.
solid argument for everyone.
I'm pretty happy with the Alberto Longo wines, just because they're so different, and it's just kind of fun to get something that's a little bit different.
Absolutely. Those wines are so beautiful and clean for the region. I mean, Puglia is
Yeah.
such a bulk producer. It can come off as a little wild sometimes, but Alberto's wines are gorgeous. It makes sense looking at the pictures of his winery.
Yeah. Yeah, the Falangina's delicious. It's fresh. We have current vintage on that, as well as the Aglianico. So it's really nice, and they do age really well. So,
and the pedigree of his winemaker, his original winemaker, is one of the most famous winemakers in Italy. He was able to snag him, and now he has the protege of that winemaker, who's his enologist there. So he's got a really serious winemaker.
Cool.
Very cool. It must be beautiful there, Dan. I hear there's lots of poppy plants, and potentially that being part of the label on his wines.
Oh, in Puglia?
Yeah.
Poppy? I didn't see any poppies when we were there, so I was there last August and spent a lot of time with Alberto actually on his boat. He has a sailboat. He went out to the Adriatic there. It was really incredible. But he's such a lovely man, and he has a little inn that he bought. And his mother, who's in her 90s, and his father, who's in his 90s, they work there, and they have a little inn. It's really, really a great little lifestyle he's got.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So Rick and Dan, I think it would be great if you, because you have nothing but time on your hands, for each of your producers to tell some stories like that. Give us stories like that. Give us the facts about the individual wineries that we can use like that are beyond the tech sheets even, because it's really stories that sell the wine. Yeah. And if we can get an outline of just, even if it's 3 or 4 sentences about each producer that really sets them apart. Dan, why did you pick Alberto Longo? Why did you, I'm sure you were presented many wines from Puglia, but you chose them. Why did you pick them? Because we're asked that question all the time, well, why do you represent this winery versus that winery? Yeah. And we were doing an Italian class once, and we showed the pictures of the producers. And at one point, somebody said, "Oh my God, you only pick handsome Italian men." And I was like, well, maybe, but I don't think that was our first criteria. But so if we,
you didn't think about
it, maybe it was, I don't know, I was trying to make us look legit though. But I think it would be really helpful to know why you picked the wines you do as the importer, and what sets this guy apart from the other 6 that you possibly considered, things like that. Yeah. And again, I know it's time, I know it's work, but it really does help us understand why we get to sell this wine, and it gives us just kind of a fun point to separate them from all the other wines from Puglia that the other vendors are proposing also.
No, you're right, Deb. And I think the thing, well, like with Giulio's presentation on here as well, right. I think that's the other opportunity that we have, is to have some short little snippets from Giulio and from Alberto and from Massimo and different representatives of the vineyards to tell a little bit of some of the stories and some of the differentiations too.
Yeah. I mean, I know we'd use those endlessly. We would use them.
Yeah, and one thing to go along with that, one thing, and thanks for bringing that up, Deb, because that's kind of the reason why we do what we do, but we're trying to think of other ways to with everything that's going on right now, kind of pass that story along to the retailers and to the consumers, even in a more, you know, streamlined way. So we've been trying to put together some of these concepts of like bundle packages. And the Italian MasterClass that we're having right now kind of inspired some thoughts of taking, all right, different regions. Let's take our representative producers from said regions. Let's put some, you know, a selection of bottles and price points together from those individual regions with some tech sheets or with some producer information, and bundle that together, you know, for our retailers, which is a primary focus right now, that they can kind of pass that right along to the consumer and really just get, you know, our representation, much Kindred Vines or Woodbury Wines representation of what we want to focus on, you know, from that area. So, you know, I'm trying to get some feedback from, you know, some sales team, from a distributor point of view of whether that would be effective or a good offer right now. But it's something that we're thinking that, you know, could be of value to both our, you know, our retailers and consumers as an ease of just passing that story along very easily and fluidly.
It's difficult for me to comment just because I'm from Pennsylvania, and
Right.
we're just a screaming disaster right now. To put
Don't
it
mean to
politely.
laugh, but yeah.
We're a
yeah.
hot mess here, kids. We're a hot mess.
I think it's nice because you can have an account, buy one case of wine and get 6 different Italian regions. So it's kind of a cool idea.
Yeah, we try
New
to,
distribution points.
yeah, we want to, you know, do some interesting themes like, you know, tour of Tuscany and feeling the heel for Puglia, and, you know, different things like that of, you know, trying to get some identity to go along with these things, so people can feel like, you know, with so much going on right now, they can just take kind of a quick jump into, you know, into this region. And yeah, you could spend a whole month, like Deb, you're talking about, educating on the subject, and we don't want to, you know, do a disservice, certainly, but, you know, how do you get that message and that story along in a, you know, a concise and succinct, you know, format, but then just, you know, allow the consumer to enjoy it at the same time.
Yeah, and I think as much as we want to kind of focus on the known regions, you know, Piedmont, Tuscany, things like that, search out the oddballs too. I mean, we found great success in this series where people went for the lesser known regions. You know, obviously Tuscany sold first, then Abruzzo and Pittsburgh, because half of the town here is from there one way or the other, sold quickly. But we also found that, you know, just really tiny regions sold out very quickly also. I mean, to give you a sense, each class we will take 21 people, and we had 12 sessions, and we were sold out before the end of December this year for this coming year. Now, we have a bit of a problem at the moment. We're going to have to double up some classes or do something, but it certainly was popular when you segmented it into different regions, for sure. I think you could be very successful with that, especially if you give them additional information.
Yeah, on top of it with tech sheets.
Yeah, and throw in a recipe. People love recipes.
Oh, that's a great idea. I like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you,
Rick.
Thanks for pulling this together. Great job.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Man, I've
everybody.
seen you more since this virus thing than I have in my entire life, I think. It's great.
All part of the team, the family.
Okay. Thank you, Rick.
Hey,
Rick, you're going to
everybody.
call me, right?
Yep, I'm going to call you right now.
Okay, dear.
Thanks.
All right. Thank
Take
you.
your time.
Thanks,
Catch your
everybody.
breath.
Bye-bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys.
Bye.
I don't know how to get out of here. Oh, yeah.
Leave meeting.